Chesapeake Bayhawks Instagram page. First guy on there. This is the link in their bio. So talking about John Page's journey, something that came out pretty recently. If you want to take us through that and the publicity you got obviously behind that and the message that obviously the Bayhawks are trying to portray and support of yourself.
It's for me, like obviously you see what the political climate and the social climate is of the US and the world. You could tell there's like a changing of, you know, there's a paradigm shift of like what we know of the world to be to what it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
And people who are like the minority groups are speaking out, right? They're not going to just be a group pushed aside. And for me, it was kind of like, I wanted to spread the message of like, that you could experience a lot of racism in your life, right? But like, and it like when people experience racism, and whether it's a really small little like thing where it might not be a big deal to you or to others, but to you it means a lot. Like
Mm.
sometimes it really kind of puts you into question of like who you are, right? And I've had a lot of racial experiences, not on the field, right? But when you read the article, like for me, like my mindset was like, I'm gonna work so hard on the field and be the best at what I am. Like you don't have a leg up to say something to me, right? Racial, because it's like, okay, cool. Like you're saying that, like, look at you. You're just getting your ass kicked the entire time. So like I don't know what you're saying,
Yeah.
right? But I've had a lot off the field, right? Like a lot. And I talked to Tariq about this a few times when we were in college, and you know, I didn't want to be Asian at one point. I was like, I wished I was born differently. I wish I looked different, and I resented everything about being Korean. Everything, right? I like resented it so much. Like I was like embarrassed to like be around like my family in public. Like it was bad. Like I went through a severe identity crisis, like a very severe one. Like I didn't know where I fit in. I didn't know where I belong. It's like, do I fit in with the white kids? Do I fit in with the Asian crowd? Like, do I fit in with the black crowd? Do I fit in with the Hispanic crowd? Like I didn't know where I fit in. I really didn't, right? And I just was going through like these like years of just like, turmoil, internal turmoil of like, I don't know what I like, who am I? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when I was younger, I was like crying all the time with my mom. Like I was like, I hate this. I don't like this. I wish I was different. You know what I mean? And being in a community where it was like, I was like one of the very few Asian people in my school. I remember there was probably about like two or three others, just including me in high school. And I was like, this is like, I wish I looked like you guys so I could fit in. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it sat with me for so many years, like so many years. And it wasn't until like maybe my junior, senior year when I was like pretty comfortable about it. Like I was confident and like I was like starting to be like, you know what? I feel great about who I am. You know what I mean? And it was like, and also with the passing of my grandmother too, like it really like hit home for me because, and I'm sorry if I'm going on a
No,
long
no, this
spiel
is
about this,
no, no, this is important.
but um, the moment that made me change all this was when my grandma passed because like my mom didn't want like was teaching me English first because she didn't want me to go through the same struggles and turmoil she did of bullying or being bullied and ridiculed for not understanding English very well, and she didn't want me to experience that. But you know I had the opportunity to continue speaking Korean fluently and be able to like have to be like competent and bilingual essentially. But for me, I chose not to, and you know, I went about my whole entire life until I was about 22, 23-ish of like not being able to speak Korean, and my grandma only could speak Korean. And as soon as she passed, like I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but
Yeah, no worries, man.
like when my grandma passed, like I like look back on my whole life and I was like, I went my whole life not speaking Korean to her and not being able to understand her at all. Like I understood her enough, but like not as much as I could have, and resented like my family and myself and everything that like I didn't spend as much time with her, and that was like the moment where it's like I don't want that anymore. And I just didn't like want that anymore from in my life. Like I didn't want that pain. And like after like my grandma passed, that was a moment that really made me change of like I don't want that pain anymore. And I realized like I need to be proud of who I am, right?
Absolutely.
And I was like, I don't want my kids to go through what I just experienced my whole life of like a identity crisis, not knowing who they are and where they fit in and where they belong in the world. So I just
Yeah.
went like, I'm gonna change my life, and yeah, I'm just gonna change like my mindset, and basically like I want my kids to have a different life than I did. So like to the day I have kids, right? Like I want them to know like they should be proud of who they are. And my message to other kids is like be comfortable with who you are, be comfortable with your culture, your identity, because like I don't want them to like miss out on opportunities like I did because of how they resent themselves and how they resent like their culture and maybe their family. And I know there's a lot of other minority like groups that in kids especially who kind of go through that identity crisis and kind of have that like resentment phase of like not wanting to be around their family and stuff. So that was my message of like making sure kids understand like be proud of who you are. And ever since that came out, like a bunch of people messaged me and were talking to me and stuff, and they were just you know the whole Asian population, Asian lacrosse community was reaching out to me, and they were like, awesome message, I appreciate you. And it was great to see that like other kids were starting to get that message, and not just me, but like
Yeah.
other groups as well that were getting it too. So
Hearing
it's
your
pretty
story
good.
and the way you just phrased that, that's like, it almost gave me goosebumps just sitting here, like thinking about it. Like that's one of the reasons I wanted to start a podcast like this, because obviously, first things first, thank you for sharing that story. Obviously, like the article can only do so much. It's a lot different when it's really spoken verbally, but opening yourself up and giving that and using your platform that you've earned to share your story and share your feelings about how you want the future to be different for kids that were in the same situation that you were. Obviously commend you for it. And it wouldn't have been able to happen unless you just kind of took that step to your uncomfortable side and were like, all right, well, hey, this is it. You could have just kind of sat back, dealt with what you needed to do, and then just got up, like, it's like, all right, I'm not going to share.
Yeah.
But you being able to share, and that's like really going back to it, this is what this is about. And I just like, I can't embody the messages I want to share even better than that. Because obviously these are things that I don't get to experience. And without hearing this from you, because you were always like a jolly dude, like always loved being around you. You were somebody that was confident, knew everybody, friendly face. Like I remember walking around with you. I would meet more people when I would walk with you to the cafeteria, and you'd stop and say hey to everybody like than anybody else. But it's super cool that you were also like kind of matching the like timeline together. When you were at Queens, you said it was around your junior year where you were starting to like kind of feel that like type of momentum, felt comfortable in your body, felt comfortable with who you were. Do you think there's a relation that ties back to sports, or was it more of a self-realization that you had of your own just on a maturity level?
It was just more of a self-realization
That's awesome.
at a maturity level. Um, I just was like, I just woke up one day. I felt like I like, you know, as cliche as it sounds, I just felt like I woke up. I just woke up,
Yeah.
and I started going through it, and I started learning more, and started asking my mom and having more conversations with her and about it, like more of our culture and whatnot. And I think during my fifth year, again, that was when my grandma passed, and that was what really made me really dive into that
Yeah.
of like, no, I'm not going the rest of my life of not knowing who I am So
That's
it was definitely more of a self-realization rather than something that kind of pushed me into that,
and just
so.
would you accredit that self-realization to any, like, it's like you said, the little things take care of the big things. Were there some little things along the way that you felt like kind of came to the top right when you had that realization, or were you just kind of, what, I'm tired of this. Like, I'm going to be me, and this is it, and here we are. We're going to do it.
I think there was some things that like kind of led up to it and helped me. Again, I think some of my professors at Queens who I still stay in touch with every so often were really like people that like helped me a lot. Some of like they did some they had some little like contributed in my life in a way that kind of helped lead up to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
To a self-realization, but you know, Professor Daniels, Professor McCrary, um, Professor Harper, when I was doing transition to university, um, and for you guys who don't know, TTU is basically a peer mentor group, and I was a peer mentor leader for freshmen and newcomers and internationals and transfers. And, those professors made a big impact in my life of like realizing some things in my life. And they were like very open-minded people. And also Professor Creech as well. Those were professors that made a lot of big impacts in my life. And those were like those were the things that really kind of helped lead me up to that, self-realization more I think about
Yep.
it. And, being a TTU leader, hearing other kids' stories and like just understanding what they're going through, you know, obviously I can't share due to confidentiality, but, some of the stories I've heard in there as a peer mentor, it just like kind of like got me starting to think more critically. So
And yeah,
yeah, I think Queen's professors are, and yeah, like I said, professors and that experience as a mentor, just like I think those were like some of the factors that made that change for me.
definitely eye-opening. And I've plugged the TTU group a few times because I ended up being a leader my senior year as well. And like you said, it's just eye-opening, and it's just like another reason like that, because I just had finished my rotation as a leader when I kind of had the idea to do something like this. Because I feel like obviously like you don't want to, like you said, there's confidentiality when you have a peer mentor group and you can't really share those things. But I feel like there's so many commonalities that people struggle with that aren't spoken of, and it's becoming, like you're saying, there's a paradigm shift. And like you're saying, in the world there's also a paradigm shift in media. Nothing's like, it's not filtered anymore. You're getting so many uncut things so often that I feel like the next changing of the guard is going to be more like you've seen, like obviously like Dak Prescott shared his story about how he was dealing with some things. Like it's becoming a lot more popular to not break yourself down, but break yourself, like kind of take yourself down a notch and say like, all right, let's go to my core. Why am I feeling like this? What am I feeling? I don't need to push this under the carpet anymore to look tough to my friends. I don't need to put on a shiny face. I don't need to post an Instagram picture to make sure people are still thinking I look how I look, right? And that is like, John, I can't thank you enough. A, for coming on, taking your time during your day, like
Yeah,
coaching.
absolutely.
B, getting so in depth with your personal story and something you've battled, because it's obviously, as hard as it is to go through it, it's almost harder to share it because it almost takes you right back down memory lane. But as you
Yeah.
can see, like to anybody that ends up viewing this, where John is now, where he thought he was going to be, and all the bumps along the way, that's something that I want to feel like anybody can confide in and feel relation to. And obviously, those are some things that I won't, like, obviously, if I'm a white male, there's some things I will never experience. But hearing these stories kind of in the same sphere as hearing it as a peer mentor, or also just a peer, a friend, have the conversation with your friends and realize that there's a world out there that you don't even know about and you're never going to experience unless you listen and ask those questions. So, John, like, seriously, always been a class act. Thank you so much for coming on with me.
Yeah, anytime.
Like,
Appreciate you having me, man.
yeah, always, man, anytime. So, we'll release this episode. Obviously, we'll plug it, put on the article that John's in, and any social media that he has. If anybody wants to reach out, talk to him, like you said. So, till next time, see you next Tuesday.